If you're a residential real estate agent earning $200,000 a year and you want to grow your passive income, this show's for you. Learn the secrets other agents use and hear from experts in our field in order to guide you along your journey to investing in assets like apartment communities so that you can turn your commissions into cash flow. I'm Randall McLeod. Let's go, baby. All right, welcome to the show today. It's good to have you on. I am bringing on a special guest near and dear to my heart. I know this guy well. He's in San Antonio, and we've been friends for a while now. I've seen him come up in real estate in the San Antonio market and go really do some big things. So it's Andy Ramirez. He is now running his own firm where they go and they acquire single family properties, owner finance those properties to end buyers, and he's building up a book of notes. Prior to that, he was in the single family side, in the investment sales side, really taking down a lot of properties and wholesaling them. But his firm was New Western. So we talk about that a bit, talk about his process, how we got started into it, what really led him back from Vegas back to San Antonio, and then what we're launching. I'm very excited that he and I have created a company together that we are now launching and raising funds for in order to execute the exact same strategy that he is doing now. And so we discuss that. Really, I go through and talk about the difficulty in doing this strategy. What it is, we outline it, try to give you as much as you can. So if you want to go out and do this on your own and owner finance properties, try to tell you, like, here's the playbook, go do it and execute. If you don't want to do all of that, he and I have created a company that allows you to invest in these deals without having to do all that work, and you just get a return. So again, really excited to talk about it. In the show notes, there's a link to the landing page that would give you information, all the details about the thing. It's a crowd fund, so we can talk about it publicly. We talk about some of the return profiles in the show at the end. And anybody can invest. It can be, you don't have to be accredited. You don't have to earn a certain amount of money. It's a crowd fund, and we did it very intentionally so that listening, if you're trying to get started in investing and you don't really know where, or you want to do this strategy, the owner finance strategy, and you want to learn from guys like me and Andy who've done a ton of these deals, you can come in and see how we're doing it and get and earn money and earn preferred return in the process. So I trust you're getting a lot out of the show. Helps us a ton if you go on and you rate and review the show. Helps us get awesome guests to come on and share their information, share their knowledge with you. So please take your time, go on, jump on wherever you listen to this, rate and review, leave a comment, chat with us. We're happy to have those conversations and do everything we can to bring you great content. So without further ado, let's bring on Andy. Let's go. All right, Andy, welcome to the show, man. It's awesome to have you on. This has been a long time coming, and you and I have been talking about working together on something for a while now. So I'm excited to talk about that. But first, before we dive into any of that, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, kind of tell us about your background, how you got started in real estate.
Sure, man. Sure. So I appreciate you having me. Born and raised here in San Antonio, was going to school at St. Mary's University. Semester right before law school started, decided to dabble into real estate investing for a little bit. And, the rest is history. Decided not to go into law school for that semester and keep going in real estate. And turned out to be a pretty good decision. Started my career off with New Western. And we were wholesaling properties. We were finding them, and being able to sell them to investors. So I really got to see hands-on from A to Z what it took to, one, find the properties, which is everybody's biggest issue, and then selling the properties, and then also following those projects with investors. So I was very fortunate early on to have a lot of knowledge and experience around me, and being able to follow these investors and really pick their brains. And, back in 2015, everybody was a little less reluctant to give you information as opposed to selling it to you like how they are now. And, so everybody was pretty much an open book. So I attribute a lot of what I know to a lot of the success that I had seen, and, worked my way up the ranks with New Western. in my first 3 years, started running the San Antonio office, and had probably about 15, 16 agents under me, and did that from like 2018 to about 2021. We got up to, we did some volume. We were doing some numbers, that's for sure.
Did some things.
Yeah. We were able to disrupt the market a little bit, a little unconventional, but I've always been very business driven. So thankfully, my relationships with my business insight, were able to come together pretty well. And New Western did a phenomenal job at just, giving me the reins and saying, hey, this is the target, don't get us in any trouble, and get there as high as you can. And, I attribute them a lot because they had the confidence to believe in me, and they invested a lot in us as well. Leadership, we did a week or so up at West Point in New York, right, where all the big military hot shots go. So it's like they really put us through the ringer, leadership, and I really praise them for that. They really made a big investment in people like me there. So and these are lifelong lessons that are going to follow us forever. It's helped me be a better leader, businessman, father, husband. It translates all across the board. So after San Antonio got a little easy, we decided to really shake things up and go open their Las Vegas office. And that was a challenge. Going from unknown city, not knowing anybody, not being well networked. So going into Vegas from literally nothing and building something out was a pretty big challenge. And thankfully, we got it off the ground. Thankfully, it started producing. And right about when I hit a year was when my family and I, we just had our third baby out in Vegas. And, we decided, hey, look, I think it's time to go home. We passed off the reins in Vegas. Somebody else took it over and was just, keeping it up at that point, maintaining it. And when we came back from Vegas, I decided it was time. New Western was great, and everything I learned was through there from one way or another, and the relationships I was able to amass. But I wanted to spend some time with my family. It was still a job. Running the office was still 60-hour a week, some weekends, and I'm on the phone all the time.
Just 60? Yeah.
And I'm on the phone all the time. So I just had my third baby, and I was like, I want to actually be there. This can't be what life should be about. So wanted to afford myself some time with the family and start building something on my own that was going to be sustainable, right? New Western was good, but every day we were always chasing the next deal, and better than I in wholesaling. It's like you're only as good as your last deal. So it's like you always got to go get the next one. So I wanted to build something more sustainable, wanted to get more in the residual side. And my entire time at New Western, I always had my own investments going on. And I gravitated to the seller finance sector of it just naturally. It was just something that really hit home for me, because when I did my first house, I remember, back in 2015 when we were selling houses for $70,000 and, $8,000 down payments, right? It was great, but to see the families, move from, these being forced to rent, where they were, moving into accomplishing a dream of being homeowners, was something very impactful. And somebody very close to me had told me, he said, Andy, it's not wrong to make money when helping people. It's wrong to make money when you're, not helping people. When you're doing it the wrong way, that's not right. And that always stuck with me. And just the impact of seeing, these families glow when, because they had these down payments to buy themselves a house and being able to pass things on to their kids, and was something very, very strong for me. And it gave me more satisfaction than flipping a house. Right. Because I mean, when you flip a house, you don't really see the buyer. You're not really connected to the house after it's gone or bought. The agents take care of all that.
Yeah.
But in this case, it's like, you're right there. Like, you're invested with these buyers. And it was something that really hit, near and dear to my heart. So throughout my time at New Western, I always had investments going on. I was always, seller financing some houses, creating notes. At that time, I was selling the notes. But then once I left New Western, when I came back from Vegas, I said, okay, it's time to build the residual income, right?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the Texas problem is property taxes. So, all the rentals that I had, were getting outpaced by the tax increases compared to the rent increase. So, all my cash flow is getting swallowed up. And I decided to switch over everything to notes, and it worked great. I mean, the cash flow is always the same. It doesn't go up, it doesn't go down, which is good, but it's consistent. And
we'll break that down.
Yeah. So it was something that I gravitated towards, and now I'm able to build something sustainable, to whereas one deal, stays in the family, stays with me. So that deal continues to give for as long as I hold that paper.
Yeah. I always, you alluded to it a second ago, or just spoke directly to it about how you're only as good as your last deal. And it's just one of those things, you're always chasing your tail. And on the owner finance, when we were doing our wholesale side of things, I always thought, like, what is sellable in this business? Is this an actual company that I could sell at some point? I would argue maybe the New Westerns of the world. Maybe if you get to that size, maybe they have a sellable product. But again, it's you're buying people and process, really. So they could sell, but at the same time, it's not like a book of business that is there. That is not hard for someone else to, I guess, reproduce. But notes are, right? Or rental properties, or like, even if you were a property management company that has like book of business that is sellable. So I always started transitioning into that. So it kind of sounds like you were thinking the same thing. It's like you need the long-term cash book of business that's coming in from those notes. So look, let's go back. Awesome. Thank you for the intro, man, and explaining kind of how you got started and where you are. One, I didn't know that you were at law school or thinking about going to law school at St. Mary's.
Yeah.
When I got back from Australia, I went and worked for an attorney, real estate investment attorney here in town. And the whole purpose was, hey, I'm going to go to law school, get my law degree. So I went and sat in some law classes at St. Mary's and worked for that attorney. I was like, nope. It's like, so yeah, it's funny. It's just kind of like a parallel I didn't know that we had. And
I took the LSATs and everything. I mean, I was prepped. I mean, I think I didn't do too bad. I think I got like a 168, 169 on the LSAT. So it wasn't too bad. But everything, my whole life was geared for it, until I was right the summer before school. I was like, I've kind of researched and been on top of investment real estate and all this stuff. And I was like, let me just try it, and forget it, man. My whole family almost, disowned me when I was like, I'm not going to go, but, now they're okay with it.
Yeah,
like,
all right, you turned out all right.
Yeah. Good choice. I was with you the whole time.
That's right. That's funny. Well, I mean, you kind of touched on a bunch of things that I want to talk about because, one, it's like the growth that you experienced and the things that you did at New Western, and the lessons you learned. I mean, you touched on it, but like, we have a lot of agents that listen to the show, and most of them, I would say, maybe not most, but a lot of them don't invest, right? Or haven't started investing. They're afraid to invest, afraid to get started. You and I are in a unique position. Like, we've mainly been on the actual investment side of the business, less than the brokerage side of the business. And so, what are some things that you took away, I guess, when you started, and know what you know now that you can maybe share with some of the listeners and say, if you want to get started, do this. Like, what would you say?
Man, the first thing I would do is focus on service, right? And that was my main thing where I kind of mentally, when I got started in real estate, obviously I was in dire need of some money, but when I got started, I quickly realized that the information in front of me was worth way more than the amount of commissions I could earn today, right? So like basically it's like, if I gave you an encyclopedia today, you'd learn how to make more money than me just giving you $5 right now, right? So that's what I realized very early. So I switched my mindset when I first started to, okay, look, just make enough to get by, but siphon as much knowledge as you can, right? I mean, the investors that I was selling houses to, I mean, these guys were in the game, man, when I was in elementary school, you know what I mean? So it's like, they haven't just been in it for a long time, but they've been in different cycles, economic cycles and ups and downs. So, to be able to weather those storms was something very impactful for me, because it's like, man, you're smart. Like you can't foresee what's coming, but you were well prepared for a lot of different scenarios. And, being a very analytical person, I just wanted to break down how and why, like they thought. So I was able to see real estate success from every walk of life you can, from the huge rental portfolios, from the huge note portfolios, from the huge flip business, from operations that have 10, 5, crews going on at one time, flipping houses. And like I said, I was very fortunate because these gentlemen, saw me a value, right? Because obviously the one thing they all had in common was they needed properties, right? And back in 2015, it wasn't so abundant. The competition wasn't so abundant, and there wasn't a wholesaler on every corner, and San Antonio was still this kind of, well-guarded market. So, if you were a vast source like us, like a New Western, then you had the inventory, so, I was able to leverage that. So I became real quick the best service man that I can to these people. And when I was able to instill so much value into them, they were quick to reciprocate, and I'd be like, let's sit down, let me go to your projects, and it didn't take too long before, they were inviting me over for coffees or their offices. And a lot of people, they taught me a lot of real estate, but everything was parallel. I feel like when I started in real estate, I got this like Control-Alt-Delete on my mind. And it's like, all right, forget everything you thought you knew and just download new information. So these people, I mean, they were teaching me how your marriage, how your life, how your relationships all, parallel and work simultaneously for success as a whole. So it was really, it was something that I was just so new to. And I was like that for years. I mean, I just took as much and anything anyone was willing to give me. So I was able, unlike the people who were teaching me and stuff, almost mentoring me, I was able to take the best things that I could from a lot of different people and then put them all on the table and be like, okay, all right, I like this. I like this. I like that. That definitely doesn't sit well with me. And then I was able to kind of create my own path, lay some concrete down. So, very fortunate. I mean, even like yourself, I mean, you don't look it, but you've been in the industry, almost twice as long as I have. Right.
Oh,
so it's like
dated,
but it's always, having people like that, around you all the time is very impactful.
So the advice, to get back to the question, is it surround yourself with those people? And
correct.
Sounds like you're saying provide a service. So let's break down what you did to provide service. Do you mean you, in your capacity of investment sales, were you giving these guys first look? Were you giving them like just over the top service, even though it may have been priced the same? Or you get like, what were you doing that was special compared to maybe some other guys in the office? Or like, why would they take you under the wing compared to some other guys?
You're right. So to answer it specifically, it was yes, be the best service you can, right? So like stuff that they need little inconveniences that add up to a big thing, right? So like houses, right? Like a big buyer doesn't want to show up to a house and bid against 5-10 different people. Like, it's just like, it does, yeah, they want the house, but it's like, oh man, like I didn't want to waste my time and reduce my chance from 100% to 10%. I might get this house, right? So it's like, I have to put people in that high regard, right? So it's like, contrary to, and I did ruffle a lot of feathers, as an agent at New Western, because people didn't like that. I sold houses maybe for a little bit less than what we could have got them for. However, making $5 instead of $10 made this guy buy 20 houses from us. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it made up in the volume. So, I would give them exclusivity, right? Yeah. So I'd be like, hey, these are the type of houses you like. I haven't shown it to anybody. You're the best in the game. We want to cater to you. Yeah. Right. And they appreciated that. So naturally, instead of me working with 100 little buyers, I had the biggest few buyers. Yeah. No, I literally went to, so Mel, my wife, is looking for rehab properties right now. Mm-hmm. So I've been kind of like, if one comes up, I'm running and looking at the house real fast, put my eyes on it. I'm like, but I went to one the other day, 5 guys walking around, and I was like, oh man, and I was like, buy it, Mel, just buy it. And then no response from the wholesaler. And she was upset. And it's one of those things, like we've bought so many houses and just never from this person. And so now we're like, but it's one of those things, like once I can absolutely see that, like, working with a guy like you and saying, okay, you just give me an address and give me an ARV, give me the actual numbers, and I've done deals with you. Then it's just like, okay, cool. Yeah. I'll buy it sight unseen. Tell me where I send the money. What I mean? And people appreciated that, because they quickly noticed that by me going above and beyond and doing things catering to them, they were able to take my word over anything. Right. So it's like, it got to the point where these investors were like, no, Andy, like I'm investing in the property, but like, I believe I'm taking your word before the company's word. Like you're my guy. Right. So it's like, I'm not like under any kind of contract with them, but it's like, no, like you're it, so it's like, if you say go, we go. Yeah. Right. But don't call us to go and then not be able to perform when we get there, when we're ready. So yeah, that's solid. It works. So again, the advice again from if you're not focused on investment sales and able to provide that type of service, I would say that you can parrot that in a sense where if you work with some investors who are looking for some property, and I've talked about this in the past, and you want to execute the strategy that they use, then go above and beyond. And I'm sure you do with your clients anyway, because that's what our business is all about. But what are the little things and little aggravations that you can do that will put you top of mind for those investors, so that one, they'll do more actual deals with you on your brokerage side of the business, but then they'll take you under the wing and say, look, this is a real deal. This is how this works. Kind of like what Andy's talking about. So solid advice, man. I appreciate that. All right. So again, what else did we talk about? Man, you talked about family. Family made you want to get out of the rat race, even though it's real estate. You're not supposed to be in the rat race. But so I want to talk about that. I want to talk about, let's see. So again, we're still talking about agents. So a couple things we could do. Maybe we could break down, because a question I've got is like, based on your experience, what are some effective strategies that agents can use today? Right. But we kind of talked about that, but I think if we focus mainly on like seller finance, because that's something that's near and dear to both of us currently, then maybe we can break that down, educate entirely like how that process works. And so if somebody wanted to, after this, after hearing this, they should be able to go out and do one. Right. So maybe we spend some time doing that. And then we'll talk about, but yeah, so let's do that. But before we get into that, right. Again, the reason, and I don't know if you listen to Simon Sinek, a lot of these guys like Find Your Why, like all these things,
Your why, it sounds like, of why you transitioned out of something that was like tried and true. You're making a bunch of money doing. You're the guy. You're running a shop out in Vegas. Into like back to San Antonio, launching your own deal. Sounded to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you wanted more time with your family. You want to not be chasing your tail. Every deal is like, you're only as good as your last one. So I guess the question in a roundabout way is, like, what advice do you give agents that are, maybe they don't know exactly what their why is, or like maybe they're just out there chasing the tail and they're trying to find a deal? Like, do you have any advice around that front? Because it is a circuitous route that most people take to get there. And if there's any way that you can shortcut that process, like, what would your advice be on that front?
Ironically, the shortcut is patience. So, the way I always saw the world is, you can go to school, get a job, retire at 59, instead of working for 35 years to live comfortably for 30, the remaining 30 years you have of life. I would rather work hard for 20 and enjoy the last 60, right? That was kind of, or 50, right? That was kind of my mindset. The shortcut is to get out there, right? Like, I think my first deal came when I was probably about 2 years into real estate, and I knew a lot and I had helped a lot of people make a lot of money. But it was never my own. Right. So it was always like vicariously through their investments. And I was always, some of them I even like budgeted for them, and they let me experiment, and they would kind of, bumper the right way through their investments. So it wasn't until, I put my own money out there that I was like, oh man, like I thought I knew a lot, but once you're out there, once you're in the game, it's like, now life is on the line, right?
Yeah. You were paper trading essentially.
Exactly. So the shortcut would be learn as much as you can to feel comfortable, have a network of people or great relationships of people around you to kind of bumper and kind of not necessarily hold your hand, but just catch you from really making a detrimental mistake, and get out there. I tell people all the time in real estate, look, if you get started and if you, in your first deal, you lose less than $10,000, you're a success. Keep going. Yeah. If you can break even your first 2 deals, you made it. Keep going. Yeah. And I can honestly tell you, after hundreds of deals later, I still haven't seen everything. You know what I mean? Just the other day, I ran into a house that had a shed, and it had probably 10,000 bees in it. And I'm like, great, throw a raid bomb in there. And the city said, no, you need like a special bee conservation permit and all this stuff. And I'm like, what? Like, I've never knew that. Right. So it's like, you just become, it's not that you're going to know everything. You just become like a better resource to figure things out. Yeah. And have people around you for that. So, get started, just go, get in it. I say every time, partner with somebody 1,000 times smarter than you and way more experienced until you feel comfortable to like really take that sell off by yourself. Partnering is the best shortcut to everything.
Okay. Great advice there. Again, on finding the why, it's like, you will find it in that process, I believe. If you don't already know it, but some great books out there that will help with that as well. It's just sit down again and visualize and think about it. And then once you are investing and you think investing is the way to go, or real estate's the way to go, then execute, just go do it. So,
and it's interesting. It's interesting because like my why, when I started, I had my first daughter when I, like, my first year in real estate, and I never wanted to be the parent that said, I didn't do this because I had you, or I did this because I had you. I never wanted to live that kind of life. So I was very young at the time. So my ambition was fueled before my daughter came, right? But then as I matured and then the third baby came, I was like, no, like this could potentially be my last. Like, I want to make sure that by the time they start going to soccer and school functions and everything, like they don't know, that disappointment of like, dad just can't be here.
Yeah.
He can't. Like, I saw that as my biggest failure. Like, why can't dad be here? Well, he wasn't smart enough to figure out how to buy himself time to be with you, and then, yeah, that sounds drastic, right? And that lives only in my head, but that was the why. That was the why was, I want to be there. I want to be a present father.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I mean, buying time, that's really what we're doing. Money. I heard somebody say the other day, it's like money. People say money can't buy you happiness. Money can't buy you time, and time, right? Time can give you the opportunity to find happiness, maybe. If you're not
100%. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. All right, Andy, let's break down an actual owner finance property and how it works, and either like what you're seeing right now, or just really how the process works, so that anyone who's listening can say, okay, I found 123 Main Street. I bought it this way. This is how I need to fix it, or what I have to do. Right. So kind of break it down from start. Where are you finding these properties? Let's start with that.
Okay, perfect. So, I'm still a licensed broker. So, I mean, we still shop on MLS, but I would say for properties, but I would say 95% of my properties, come from other wholesalers. Hey, I was raised in the business. I understand the business, and I like the ecosystem of giving to them. They put more in the market. They bring me more deals. You build the relationship. So, I'm still well connected in the city. I still have a lot of relationships. So a lot of my properties come from wholesalers right now. And, they know what I'm looking for.
Okay. So that's key. Again, let's talk to the lesser. So so step one, go find some wholesalers in your market. Like, what's the best way somebody can do that?
I think it's free to get on Investor Lift right now. Investor Lift has revolutionized the game. And, at New Western, we were always 10 years ahead of our nearest competitor. Investor Lift put everybody within 3 months of New Western, and because of its technology. So as a buyer, sign on to Investor Lift. It's absolutely free to see every deal in your area. Okay. And it has every wholesale contact in your area right there. Reach out to them, build up a relationship. They want you as a buyer just as much, if not more, than you want them as a seller. Yeah. So it's a mutual relationship.
Is it Investor Lift LYFT or LIFT? I can't remember. We'll put it in the show notes. But
I want to say it's LI. That's a good question.
Okay. But that's a solid, that alone is just going to save a ton of time if you jump on that. Okay. So that's tip one. Talk to some wholesalers, get on that, do the work, just call them and make that introduction. So then they send you a deal, right? They you get on these people's list. They send you a deal. Like, how do I know it's a decent deal? What am I looking at?
So
specifically for owner finance strategy.
Yeah. Specifically for owner finance. So you got to understand the demographics, right, of your market, right, in your city. So where we're at in San Antonio, through trial and error, I know that when we sell houses, like alley streets, those little like 0 lot line houses where it's just like a shoebox in the middle and you park your car in the street. Shotgun houses, those are just tough to sell. Right. So it's like, understand what I mean by understanding your demographics. It's like, understand the average family in your area, right? San Antonio, families of 4 and 5 are just natural. Right. Mom, dad, 2, 3 kids. Right. And so it doesn't matter what, social class you're in, it's the same size no matter what. Right. So, what I look for is 3 bedrooms and up, 2-bedroom houses, those are they're hard to move. And, people normally don't invest to buy a house for a family. So 2 kids, 3 kids can share 1 bedroom. Yeah. Right. So, I look for 3 bedrooms and up. I'm paying attention to the condition of the property still. So you got to kind of look at it like a flip in a way. I'm trying to see what has to get done, the majors, stuff like that. And then of course, what it's worth, right? Just because you're seller financing doesn't mean you can put your own price, right? Like you can fluctuate it a little bit, but you can't, go 50K over, right? So you got to see what the property's worth. And before anything, you got to look at the house to buy it and fixing it with the end in mind. Is it a note you're going to hold? Is it a note you're going to sell? Right? Because that takes you down different paths every which way. Thankfully, it's like, I'll buy everything with the intention of selling it because that means it's perfect for me to hold it. Right. So if that's the intentions, and it works both ways. But yeah, so I look for a not a huge yard, but enough to where like you could let the dog out, right? Like if you had a party, you could put like, a bouncy castle in the backyard and stuff like that. Like I'm trying to sell to like 1,000 people instead of like the niche 100, right? Yeah. So, I look for little things like that, right? Is this a good community to raise a family, right? Because if it works for a family, it works for the couple with no kids. Yeah. So it expands your buyer pool.
Okay. So for this strategy to work, then like, what are you typically buying these things? Not a dollar amount, but typically, I guess a percentage, because then it can translate. I guess it does, because when you go to sell it, the dollar amount does matter. It's like,
it does.
You're not going to own or finance, at least in San Antonio, $500,000 houses. And it's just, so I guess, but on a percentage basis, assuming in San Antonio, we're looking to sell these things for around 2 to 215, right? That's kind of like for an owner finance where you're carrying paper, that's kind of like the money spot to be in. So what are you trying to acquire those things for, like price point typically?
Normally, it would be somewhere between 65 to 72%, including repairs of what the property is worth. Yeah. Right. That's a good solid average. Now, granted, with an owner finance deal, it's like different than a flip, right? So like that same property at that same price could be a 77% flip, right? And the reason I say that is because, when you're owner financing, we can get away with like resurfacing floors and stuff like that. We're like, as in a flip, like you're going to have to change out the flooring and all kinds of stuff. Right. So like there's little things where we can save $1,000 here, another 1,000 here. So, we're not necessarily spending the same as a flipper would. So it's like when people say like, oh, you can't find houses for 65, percent, 70%. It's like, yes, you can, because for two reasons, right? One, my crews can get things done for way cheaper than their crews will, and for two, I'm not going to spend the 30, I'm going to spend 23,000, which is that difference in percentage. So that's the difference. So they could be selling it for a 77% flip, and by the time I'm done with it, it's a 71% owner finance, which hits our margins perfect.
Yeah. But Andy, I don't have a crew. What do I do? That's like, I'm telling you, just buy it and make less money, but still execute, right? Just go do it. And then 100%. Build up that, like I put a video out the other day and like got all kinds of feedback. It was just about how to buy 10 houses before you're 30. It was hilarious. And I'm just on there. I'm like, just go do the work, and
that's true. And you can, and the reason is you don't need a crew. Right. What you can do when I first started was I just had 6-7 people bidding out the same work. Yeah. And I'd be like, one guy showed me this, guy number 2 went lower, guy number 3 went lower. By the time I got to 6, it was like, dude, if you can do this all the time, you're my guy forever. Yeah. And that's what ends up happening, So it's like, don't be afraid. Like, it's going to take some calls and patience, but, shop it.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So that's a good tip as well on the rehab front. Okay. So now you've got it rehabbed, you go to market, you take it, you list it, and you're selling this thing. So what are the mechanics of selling it? Right. So you're listing it, you got a buyer that comes, what happens then? Are they putting money down? Are you just 100% financing? Are you like,
yeah, no. So No. So everybody does things different. I'm going to tell you that we do things the right way. So it's, you know, you gotta stay in compliance, right? Seller financing, believe it or not, it's not 30 years ago. They're not handshake contracts anymore, right? Like you got to go through an RMLO. If you're doing more than 3 a year, you got to go through an RMLO, you know, residential mortgage loan originator. Yep. They originate everything to keep you in compliance according to Dodd-Frank, and there's other acts that protect the borrower as well as the seller. So you stay in compliance. Once you get the seller, right? Normally the RMLO will have like an application process for them to fill out, right? Verifies income, you know, verifies their DTI, you know, like a traditional sale. Yeah. In some cases, you know, checks their credit. So it's like a traditional sale in this case, except, you know, we're acting as the bank. We're the underwriters. We're the ones approving them or not. So once they send that application in, we get a good account for their actual income, right? And then we get a good account for their debt to income, their DTI, right? And, you know, we might have a slight credit score here or there, but, you know, that's really, as an owner, as a seller financing, you know, seller financer, credit score is the last thing I look at, because, you know, you could have a 30-year-old who ruined their credit at 18 because they got a Best Buy credit card and just let it go and all kinds of stuff, right? So it's like, that's really the last thing I look at. Yeah. Exactly. So that's really the last thing I look at before looking at their ability to pay, right? Once we establish ability to pay, I really look at that credit score to see what really hurt them, right? Like if it was like an IRS lien or judgments or child support liens, we take those very serious, right? Because then those will attach to the house. And even if I take that house back, I have an issue on my hands, right? So, you know, those are the type of things we really look at, is like federal, you know, debt, right?
One of the guys that and you know him here in San Antonio, but very well versed in this world and creating loans, told me, like, I look at credit simply to verify what somebody has told me, right? So it's like it's another way of just checking the story out. Like, did they tell you about it? Did they not? Are they going to lie to you about something going forward? But really, it's the intent and ability to pay. So anyway, sorry, I didn't get you off there.
No, you're right. And you know, bank statements, you know, pay stubs, stuff like that. We will take people's taxes in. However, taxes, you know, don't really tell the best story, right? Because I've had business owners write off, you know, make $430,000 a year in the business, and somehow they only claim they made $36,000 in profit, right? In income. So it's like, you know, that doesn't really tell you the best story. So you kind of have to be like a, you know, forensic accountant in some instances, right? Where it's like, look, please just I'm not the IRS. Tell me the truth. Like, I'm trying to fulfill your dream. None of this gets reported to the IRS. What you and Uncle Sam have, that's y'all's relationship, you know? So people open up, right? And then we just verify, exactly like you said, we just verify everything they said. Hey, you were right. This is true. You make X amount, you owe this much, and, you know, you qualify for the house. So typically is like, you know, around that $200, $215 range, they're going to have a $1,900 to $2,200 a month payment. We want to see they make at least three and a half times, you know, that payment. Yeah. Right. So that way it's comfortable. You know, the last thing you want is people to have to make, you know, at the beginning of the month, it's like, well, should I buy food for the family or should I pay the mortgage? That's the last thing you want to be on their minds, you know? So you want to make sure they can pay it comfortably. Yeah.
So, all right. So let's break down. Are they putting down a down payment, right? So say
yes, at least minimum 10%.
Okay.
Just minimum.
So you're in this thing for, if you're buying it at 65, 70%, let's say 70%, you're in it for 140,000. Mm-hmm. You're selling this thing for 200, give or take. So they're putting 10%. So that's $20,000 down. So your all in cost is kind of reduced already.
Correct.
But obviously we have some payments you got to make to agents and people like running a business essentially. So, so you're all in, let's keep it at 140. You got $20,000 down. They're making payments on 180 and so you're at 140, 180, right? So the returns, if you're charging an 10 or 11% interest rate on that, just the returns alone on that are already going to be higher than that because your investment is only $140,000, right?
Correct.
So it juices your returns on that front, which is nice. But what are the other reasons to own or finance a property compared to doing a rental on it?
So the big, like I spoke about, I touched on it a little bit earlier, but to dive into it is the big reason I love it more is because, you know, that $500, $600, $800 a month cash flow will never get diluted like a rental property, right? Due to property taxes, right? So it's like you sold the house. So a property, if taxes go up, their mortgage increases, but your cash flow does not decrease, right? So for the duration of that note, which, you know, we're doing them at amortized over 30 years, for the duration of that note, your cash flow is going to stay consistent, right? And you're in that first position to, you know, if push comes to shove and you have to foreclose, you still have that big gap on that. So people are saying, oh, you know, I get the criticism a lot. Well, you're giving up a lot of your equity. I mean, you're giving up the equity, and it's like, well, you're right. I'm giving up not the equity. I'm giving up the appreciation. But think about appreciation, right? Like if your cash flow is coming down and you fix an AC and you're only making $200 a month, it takes you 3 years to make the AC cost back. So when you sell the house, you didn't really make $40,000. You made $33,000, $35,000 because your expenses, the duration of you holding that rental property still ate into your equity position, right? So think of it as like immediate appreciation when you sell a note with that much equity in it, right? Because if they come in and refinance that house, well, that's fine. I still have a $40,000 position based, and I still collected all that monthly income through the life of the note. So at any time, and if I foreclose on it, well, hello, I still have that debt on there, you know? So it's like, that still has to get taken care of. So, you know, you're not giving up equity. You're giving up, I guess, appreciation, but typically a $200,000 house isn't going to shoot up to 350 anytime, you know.
I mean, you could look at the numbers. If you're appreciating at I don't know, 3% per year, you can project that out, like how long you're going to hold it. Great. But at the same time, if you have the note, you're earning the interest. Is the interest that you're earning more than that appreciation amount? So you're getting interest. So if you look at your AM schedule and you see the total payments over time, I mean, I would argue that it's more. You're going to earn more in interest on 10%, you know, than you're going to get.
Oh yeah.
So you're really, you're not giving up your equity. You are opting for taking your equity over time in payment.
Exactly. And so, like you said, time, right? So it's like, it buys you time. So, all right, look, I want to cover, I guess, the difficulty in this. Like, if I'm new and I'm trying to do this, I hear Andy talking about it. Andy's badass. Andy's been doing this. Yeah. He knows how to do everything in real estate, right? But again, I'm like, how do I even go and buy that? Like, where do I get the $140,000 I need? Right? Where does that come from? That's a great question. And you know what, Randall, you are going to be the only one with the information anywhere on the internet of where to get it, you know, because that was always my biggest issue, right? When I started, I was like, oh, you just buy houses and then you just sell houses. And it's like, it's that easy, but it's like, well, you still have to buy them, right? So, you know, the best way to do it, you could go two ways, right? You can either go private money, the way, you know, go get a rich uncle or a retired someone or whatever, right? And it's like, hey, loan me this much money and I'll give you X amount, you know, when I sell it or whatever the case is. However, just like we talked about in real estate, wholesaling is like, I got tired of chasing deals and I knew I never wanted to chase money, right? Like those are the two things that I just refused to do again. So when it came to money, when it comes to buying these houses, part of my relationships and my networking is I have, phenomenal hard money lender friends that own their own companies that I helped at New Western establish great book of business, so when it came time to reciprocate, hey, I need some help. They're like, I got you. You know what I mean? So build the relationships up, right? I still pay hard money costs and fees, and I'm not, impervious to the regular world, but they were there when I need them. Hard money lenders are always there when you need them, and it works. So what I've been able to do is, I'll buy them hard money, right? And I'll fix them up. Once they're up and perfect and fixed, then I will do one of two things. Either you refinance it, right? And, now you have less, obviously, amortized lesser interest rate over 30 years, and then create what we know as a wrap, right? So we wrap them and then you collect your yield spread over the bank's money, right? So, what I realized very early in real estate was you got to know houses, you got to know real estate, you got to know how to find them. But money is a huge factor, if not the most important factor in real estate. So you have to become financially educated, financially intelligent. You got to know where it comes from. You got to know who has it, and you got to know how to get it. Yeah. And so that was a big turning point for me too. The ability to use institutional money, right? And then of course, I'm sure we'll touch on later, but we figured out, private money is way cheaper and it's better to use. So institutional money is always there. So, the bank gets money from the feds, who creates it out of God knows where, right? And then, they get money from the feds, they pay the feds, they give it to us. Well, it's the same cycle, I realized I can't change the rules. The lawyer driven mindset on mine is find a loophole. The Constitution's only been around for 300 years, right? Like, there's the loophole. Somebody missed something, right? But it was like, you can't change it. Play by their rules and just do it your way, right? So that was kind of the way I ended up facilitating a lot of the business model. But again, it wasn't that easy. You got to have credibility. You got to have experience. You got to have credit. Because I flipped some houses, I had some money in reserves to be able to refinance deals. So, it's not like as easy as I just made it seem. There's other steps that you have to take, but essentially is that allows me to recycle money, right? So all it is $10,000 goes out, it comes back with 20. Now 20 comes out, it comes back with 35, then 35 goes out, comes back with 50. And then it just keeps snowballing into bigger amounts, right? Yeah.
There's a guy I listened to. You just described currency, right? His name's Victor Bond. He was at a lot of conferences that we went to, and I think he played basketball or baseball or something. Huge guy. Anyway, he's like, he had a saying that water is money is like currency, or currency is called currency for a reason because it keeps flowing, right? It's got to keep flowing. Yeah. If you have money just sitting there, it's not gonna, it's not doing its job. I'll have to look it up because it's a really good statement, but you just described the same kind of thing. But I want to touch on this before we get off the topic, because the whole idea of what we're working on, you and I launching this new venture together, is to eliminate the headaches, I guess, that you're describing. This is an awesome strategy, right? Seller financing and carrying paper and owning notes, you become the bank. I mean, it's an incredible strategy to build wealth over time, to have your money working constantly, to not have the headaches of toilets and tenants, and to not, fix the AC and lose, 3 years worth of income. Let's talk about kind of what is actually happening now. So we're going to do that, and we'll talk about the fund that we're launching right now. But the headaches right now, if you wanted to go out and do this, you could go hard money lender. Hard money lender is going to charge you a couple points up front. You close on the deal. They're going to give you some of the funds maybe to rehab the property. Depends on your relationship with them and how much experience you have, I guess. And then you're going to have to go refinance them out because hard money is typically a six month loan. They want their money back in 6 months. So you fix it up real fast. You go and you refinance it with a traditional lender. And so now you have an additional set of fees and a whole new transaction that you have to deal with and work on. And then you have the third transaction, which is owner financing it to the end buyer. And so you have another set of fees that, the RMLO is going to charge. Typically the buyer is going to pay for that. So it's just, there are steps in that process to create that business, but that is the business, right? And if you get good at it, like Andy has, then you just process map it and the whole thing is kind of done. And all you need is deals and dollars at that point, right? So you got deals coming in from his wholesale network, dollars coming in from the two batches, the hard money lender plus the actual refi lender. They know his process. They know his program. So now he just needs to go out and find more deals. Boom, does this process over and over again. Not insurmountable. You can certainly go do it. Really, that roadmap is just been laid out. That's how you can go do it. If you don't want to do all of that and you still want to get the returns typical of this type of investment strategy, that's what Andy and I are now working on and now launching. So we have just finally gotten the approval from everything we've launched. We're live on the Envone portal. So we have Ram Capital Fund 1 LLC is just gone live. We are doing this strategy, the one we just talked about, the one that Andy has perfected, that he's just going out doing every day, day in and day out. But we are eliminating the need for the hard money lender and the need for the second refinance and making it super easy to go and acquire those deals and then have an end buyer come and buy them. So it sets it up. What we're doing is we're offering returns for investors just like you to come in and participate in these types of deals, see how it works on our end, see the process that we have, and give you a return to where you don't even have to do the work, right? And so you can see it. And we talk about it a lot. I've talked about it on the show all the time. Agents Building Cash Flow. We named it that very intentionally. It's about how you can build cash flow, take your active income and turn it into passive income. And this is the exact strategy that you can use. So if you're earning money, we've launched this thing on a crowdfund platform so that you can invest as little as $10,000. You can invest more than that, obviously, and based on how much you invest is how much your preferred return will be. Happy to go dive into that. We're going to do a full webinar on this and what it looks like. But the whole point is, if you want to get involved and you want to start investing and you want to be learning this strategy, just like Andy just talked about, like align yourself with people who have done it and know it. And this is a great way that you can do that. So I'm pumped, man. We've talked about this. It's been about a year, and so I don't know, man. Do you want to tell kind of like how this came about and give your take and your side of it?
Yeah.
Kind of where we are now, I guess.
Yeah. It was really interesting. So it was like, when I came back from Vegas, of course, I've known Randall for a very long time, and he was one of the first people I reached out to. And I said, hey, Randall, like I want to go into seller financing. How can we, or more, not we, but how can I, make this long, right? How can I create a sustainable business model? So before I even figured out, crack the code to the matrix, I was already, planning it in Randall's head, and we met a few times and like every successful idea, right, at Starbucks. And, Randall was giving me little bits of information here. And like I said before, I was taking as much as Randall knew, because I knew his business model, seller financing. And I was like, okay, well, that's a phenomenal business model. That's sustainable. How can we institutionalize that model? And so once he gave me enough, then, I just I had to get in it, right? I had to just do it, run some deals. And then once I got the ball rolling, I sat back with Randall. I was like, hey, Randall, look, man, this is how I figured it out. Crack the code. This is how I'm doing it. And Randall was able to see it. And then you told me, you were like, man, what if we implemented like a fund for this? And I was like, well, I mean, all that would be doing is saving me a ton of money and headaches, and it would make life way easier. Yeah. And he's like, but like I said, money wasn't, something I had really dabbled into, because I have it like, available, but it's more like, hard money and banks and all this stuff. So I never dabbled into that. And my hard money lender, he owns a company. And when we started doing his loans in Western, he was probably doing maybe like $3 million at a time. Fast forward almost 10 years, 12 years later, and he's at $100 million in rotation right now, and so he told me when I first came back from Vegas, I was like, I'm going to seller finance and you got my back. And he's like, yeah, I got you, whatever you need. And he's like, Andy, let me tell you something though. Let me know when you get out of real estate and you go into money. And I was like, what? That doesn't make sense to me. Like, I'm going to always be in real estate. He's like, yeah, that's what I thought, and I called him up like a month ago and I was like, I get it. Like, I see what you're saying, because he quickly understood. He's like, people who run the real estate, yeah, they create a market, but people who run the money create the real estate opportunity, right? So, and that's what really changed my perception. And Randall had already managed funds and had been doing big deals and apartments and all kinds of stuff. So I was like, okay, like I said, the best way to learn something is partner up and put both forces together, right? I have no doubt in my mind Randall could do this business model by himself. However, it would take a lot of what we're trying to buy, time and effort. And so it made sense. Bring Randall. I mean, Randall knows the funds, knows the real estate. But the boots on the ground in the real estate is very daunting. It takes a lot of time.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. Yeah, I mean, you've been crushing that. That's one thing, man. Honestly, I play volleyball with Mario, your cousin, right? Uncle Mario. Yeah. So, man, we've known each other for a long time, and miss you out there, by the way, bud. You need to get out.
I'm too old for it now.
And so I've seen you work, and I've seen you come up, and when you started doing real estate and just crushing it. I remember, and just the way you carry yourself, very professional the whole time when you're again, back in the day when you were wholesaling things. I was always impressed with the way you handled it. So, yeah, I when we first started talking, I was like, I went home, told my wife, I was like, if I can work with Andy, it'd be awesome. Like, guy is just a hustler. He goes and gets it done. And so, yeah, I'm glad we've gotten to this point and we have something now that's out and available and we're offering. So look, I don't want to take too much more time on this. We're going to do a whole actual webinar. We're launching. I'm going to have a link in the show notes to where you guys can go and click on it. It'll have a video, again, like a webinar on what the fund is and what the fund does, how you can participate. We can actually talk about it now. So the returns, if you're investing under $25,000, you're going to get a 7% preferred return. If you're up to 50, but below, it's going to be 8. Up to 150 is 9, and then over 150, and then it's a 10% preferred return paid quarterly. So pretty awesome. We structured it that way because it costs us $100 to $150,000 to be in a property. And so if we're bringing on partners for a single deal, then they're investing a decent chunk of money, and we want them in the deal and making a solid preferred return. So again, more details on that to come and in the link in the show notes. But hope you got a ton out of this episode because Andy's a wealth of knowledge. He's been doing a lot. I'm going to give a link to his contact information as well down there. If you want to reach out to him, by all means, please do so. And yeah, man, we'll catch you on the next episode.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate it. Thanks, brother.
Good catching up.
Did you know that 80% of the agents we speak with got into real estate in order to gain passive income so they could obtain financial freedom and become work optional? If you want to stay up to date, the best way is to make sure you're subscribed. So if you haven't done that, go ahead and do it now. We'll catch you on the next episode.